The Christmas story is found only in two of the Gospels, the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke. And I would like to read those two stories to you this morning as the beginning of this lesson. And the first story is in Luke 2, the first 20 verses, and it reads as follows. And it happened in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus to take a census of all the people in his empire. The first census took place during the governorship of Quirinius in Syria. And every man went to be registered in his own city. Joseph also went up from Nazareth, a city of Galilee, to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, with his purchased wife Mary, while she was with child, that they might be registered there. And it came to pass, while they were there, that her days to be delivered were fulfilled. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and she wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Now there were shepherds in that region that were staying and watching over their flocks at night. And behold, the angel of God came to them, and the glory of the Lord shone on them, and they were seized with a great fear. And the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for behold, I bring you glad tidings of great joy, which will be to all of the world. For this day is born to you in the city of David a Savior, which is called Christ the Lord. And this is a sign for you: you will find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger." And suddenly there appeared with the angel a heavenly host, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men." And it came to pass, when the angels departed from them and went to heaven, that the shepherds spoke to one another, saying, "Let us go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, as the Lord has shown to us." And they came hurriedly and found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in a manger. And when they saw it, they made known the word which was spoken to them concerning the boy. And all who heard it were amazed at the things which were spoken by the shepherds. But Mary treasured all of these things, and she pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all that they had seen and heard, as it was spoken to them. And now from the second chapter of Matthew we read, "When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, there came Magi from the east to Jerusalem. And they were saying, 'Where is the King of the Jews who has been born? For we have seen his star in the east, and we have come to worship him.' But when Herod the king heard it, he trembled, and all Jerusalem with him. So he gathered together all the high priests and scribes of the people, and he kept asking them, 'Where is the Christ to be born?' And they said, 'In Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it is written in the book of the prophet, Even you, Bethlehem of Judea, you are not insignificant in the eyes of the kings of Judah, for whom you shall come out a king, and who will shepherd my people Israel.' Then Herod called the Magi secretly, and he learned from them at what time the star appeared to them. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said to them, 'Go and inquire very carefully concerning the boy. And when you have found him, come back and let me know, so that I also may go and worship him.' When they had heard from the king, they went away and beheld the same star that they had seen in the east was going before them, until it came and stood just above the place where the infant boy was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly. And they entered the house and saw the infant boy with Mary, his mother. And they threw themselves down and worshipped him. And they opened their treasures and offered to him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And they were told in a dream not to return to Herod. And so they departed to their own country another way. Well, this is the story of the birth of Jesus the Christ. And through it, we can identify all of the characters and the people that were involved. Most of us are very familiar with this story, but it has a very deep and personal and practical meaning for you and for me. In other words, we want to address the question, what does this story have to do with me? Or we might ask, how am I involved in this story? And what is its meaning? Let us first take a look at all the characters that are involved in this story and see what they represent in our lives. First of all is the star in the east, and the east always means the inner. So we know that this story has an inner meaning to us. Jesus, of course, represents the spiritual awareness that is awakened in you and me. And what this means is that when we become really aware that we are created in the image and after the likeness of God, we become aware that we are spiritual beings. Because God created out of himself, not out of nothing, we are equipped with all of the powers of God at our spiritual level, of course, because that is what God created, is the spiritual being that you and I am. So it is this becoming consciously aware of this fact that we call the birth of the Christ. This means that we become aware that we are more than we appear to be, that we are spiritual beings, and we are called the Christ at our spiritual level. Jesus called it the Father within. Next is the Virgin Mary, which represents in us our love and intuition and our feeling nature that is not contaminated with negativity. And of course, Joseph, the husband, the father of Jesus, and he represents right and positive thoughts within ourselves. So when our feeling nature that is not contaminated with negativity and our right thinking come together, it produces the consciousness of the Christ within you and within me. The shepherds represent the protecting entities of God that watch over you and me. Bethlehem is the house of bread, or it symbolizes the abiding place of spiritual substance. Judea means spiritual recognition. So when the substance in which Jesus is born in us represents how spiritual in character is the place within us where we become aware of our own Christ identity. The psalmist, the 91st Psalm, pointed it out. It's the secret place of the Most High that dwells within us. The wise men represent the coming forth to our thought and feeling of dormant soul memories that have been dormant for perhaps eons. We have many examples of this. One example is the beautiful music that came through Mozart at the age of 9. Sometimes you and I go to other geological locations other than Dallas, perhaps somewhere around the world. And suddenly we feel that we've been there before. This seems to be familiar. Perhaps some of you have had that experience. And again, these are soul memories that begin to come forth into us. Inventors have these soul memories come forth in beautiful new ideas and new concepts to help make our living in our physical life more palatable and more fun. So this Christmas, let our hearts be filled with gratitude for all of the gifts that you and I, as a child of God, receive from God. If you'll just take a moment to remember that God is constantly giving his gifts of divine ideas to us through the Christ of our own being. Amid some of the raging circumstances and experiences of life, God offers us the gift of gold serenity, which is represented by the gift of gold. These are divine ideas. Amid apparent lack, God offers the sweet richness of our movement out of mortal human consciousness and into spiritual or Christ consciousness. Of course, consciousness means thought and feeling. This is represented by the gift of frankincense. And amid any appearance of pain or disease, God offers you and I healing, wholeness, and health. And that's represented by the gift of myrrh. Serenity, prosperity, wholeness. These are the gifts that we can receive each day from our own awareness of our own Christ identity. Herod in the story represents our ego, our human ego. And ego always is threatened with your awareness of the Christ of your being. See, ego wants to stay king. It wants to undo spiritual awareness in you. The inn where there is no room for the birth of the Christ represents our seething mind, the mind that is totally, completely occupied with the things of our outer world. The stable represents the commonplace, probably the problem areas of our life, because many times our awareness of the Christ seems to be awakened through illness, pain, suffering, trouble, loss, failure, and even grief. The human ego is also in the Bible called Satan, the devil, the tempter. And incidentally, the word Satan comes from the original Aramaic word satana, which simply means a crooked thought. That's the original meaning of it. And so we ask the question again, what does this story have to do with me? It is the story of you and me. It is our story. So let's see if we can put it in terms that each of us can understand a little better. First of all, when our thought and feeling recognizes that we are first, foremost, and eternally a spiritual being of God, we become aware then of our own Christ identity, because that is the spiritual being that you and I are. This awareness cannot come when we are totally focused on our outer world and circumstances, experiences out here. For if we are totally working in the outer, there is no place for the awareness of our Christ identity to come forth. No room in the inn. The place where this Christ consciousness is born evolves out of our own inner human needs, the needs of our soul. And so this Christ awareness comes out of whatever needs that our soul has for experiences. For me, this awareness came out of my need to find better answers for my life, because I could not find correct answers in the world outside in which I was living. I could not solve everyday problems in the correct way. And so I was forced to go in, to follow the star in the east and go into the inner parts of my soul. At first, the ego gets in the way, and it gives us lots of reasons why we are not able to accept the awareness of the Christ within us. I know it gave me many, many reasons to stay away from that, and I did for a time. But fortunately for me, problems kept getting bigger, and I couldn't solve them. And so I went inside and found the awareness of the Christ within myself and began to solve beautiful ways in which to solve these problems. Then we receive some rich soul memories that become very helpful to our attention to this beautiful Christ Spirit within us. What are some of these soul memories? Well, we know that they're the divine ideas of God. And we mentioned 3 before: the gift of God's abundance. The second was our movement from material human consciousness into spiritual and Christ consciousness. And finally, we became aware of the eternality of us as spiritual beings. So this awareness that we have is very, very special to us, particularly at this time of year. But it should not be just at Christmas time, but it should be every day of our life. If we love God totally, with all our strength, with all that we are, spirit, soul, and body, then we prepare properly for the birth or awareness of this Christ nature within us. This is the true Christian life. You shall love your God. Remember, that was Jesus' first commandment. Through this love, we build the pure consciousness where the idea of the Christ can be conceived. God is infinite and whole, and God needs you, and God needs me to express himself. Where else would he implant his very nature except in species man, in you and me? The Christ child that we worship, that we love and cradle in our heart, is symbolic of God's eternal newness, freshness, of the beauty and love that are our own true nature. Every one of us have this wonderful nature within us. Whether it's expressed or not, that's up to us as humans. But it's there. All the qualities that you and I deem favorable and desirable are the capabilities and the qualities of the Christ that's in you right now. There were in the person of Jesus 2 distinct regions. There was the mortal or human part that was Jesus, and in the Bible it's called Son of Man. Then there was a central living, real part that was spirit. In the Bible it's called Son of God. That is the Christ, the anointed one. So each of us, you and I, have these 2 regions of being within us. One is the mortal human part, which feels weaknesses and insufficiencies. But then at the very center of our being, there is something that knows itself to be the Christ, the Son of God, as the Bible puts it, the anointed one. We all must recognize that it was the Christ within Jesus that made him what he was and what he is. And it is the same Christ power which enables you and me to help ourselves and then to help others. Once we are able to comprehend this wonderful truth, the truth is that this same Christ that lived in Jesus lives in you and me right this very moment. Whether you realize it or not, you are filled with this great power and presence. And it's wonderful. Jesus said, "Ye shall know the truth, and this truth will make you free." The angels of the Lord, which are our God thoughts, are announcing the coming of the Christ to your consciousness. Let us walk together, motivated, blessed, healed, and enlightened by the Christ light that is born in you and me today, at this season. But let's not just leave it at the season. Let's work on it every day. Our greatest gift to others is the recognition of the Christ in you, and then allowing the other person to recognize the Christ in them. Let us keep ourselves immaculate for the conception of this Christ within us. Let us resolve to constantly give birth and expression in our pure virgin mind to a life which expresses this beautiful Christ nature that's in you and that's in me. I hope that you can really feel that you are something special, that every one of you has within you this wonderful presence and power, and you can express it in any way that you choose, to heal, to bless, to love, and to teach. Next Sunday, we're going to talk about the way of the Christ. How can I use this inner power to brighten my life, my family's life, my social life, my business life? This is a great power, dear friends, that you have. And we know that as you continue to become aware of your own Christ nature, that everyone around you will feel blessed and healed. You are wonderful. God bless you, and Merry Christmas to you all.